A very good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Candid Talk here on Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. My name is Evan Sokinyi. I'm glad that you're here with us. Such a pleasure having you on board. I'm here with Professor Herman Manyora. Prof, how are you?
Good. And asking Kenyans to maintain peace, asking Raila and Ruto not to take this country down.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Demonstrations are here. There is a number of statements being made by the Nairobi Regional Commander, the guy in charge of security in this area, Adamson Bungei, definitely. And he outlawed the Azimio demonstrations. Let us begin from there. That statement was made by Adamson Bungei. Then the president on the other end said that he will not allow. I mean, is it within their mandate not to allow these demonstrations or pickets or protests or whatsoever it is?
You know, a simple, plain, common sense reading of the Constitution. Nobody has the power to allow or not to allow. When I listened to Bungei, he was contradicting himself. It talks of stopping. You say you are going to demonstrate, and let's follow the Public Order Act, which, in my understanding, goes against the spirit of the Constitution.
Definitely.
Doesn't take into consideration the historical realities that created Article 37. But let's say, fine, let's allow them. They came up with the Public Order Act 5 or something. Even that one does not envisage a situation where they are granting the permission. Bungei is saying the things that will make the demonstrators, picketers, and strikers and the rest get afoul of the law. And those things will make the police to stop, S-T-O-P. Him is anticipating they'll do that. That's not how the law works. No. That's even in that law, that unconstitutional act of parliament. Or we can say it's unconstitutional, but it doesn't take into consideration the spirit of the law. It doesn't understand the historical underpinnings of Article 37. Even that one on its own, even if it is perfect, it does not give the police the power to anticipate. It gives him the power to stop. In other words, once you are already doing these things and you are armed, how do you know will be armed? How does Bungei know people will be armed?
But he said
that deductive way of thinking is wrong.
That's what they're saying,
because I had a black jacket, because I went to the demonstration in this jacket, you feel tomorrow I'll be in the same jacket. But that is wrong thinking.
Look at the kind of press
that's illogical
statement that Mr. Bungei made, and what was there in definitely talking of previously people have been armed with machetes and.
That's not how the law doesn't work like that. Law doesn't work like that. Then the law will demand of you to identify the people and make sure they are not part of the next demonstration. That's how the law works. If Raila was armed, tell Raila now, this time, because last time you were armed with your bulletproof and you had a machine gun, you will not be allowed into the demonstrations. You identify 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the next question will be, why didn't you take them to court? It's not possible. The law does not give anybody the power to grant a permit for a meeting.
Then what is the
and it's born clearly out of the struggles, the suffering, the pain that Kenyans went through. Holding a public meeting was a nightmare. To get the permit from the police or from the authorities was something that people dreaded to go through. And that's therefore, when we made our constitution, we say Kenyans have a right to picket, to go on strike, to demonstrate.
Okay.
But that was enough. There was no need for any enabling or subsidiary legislation or other legislation, apart from the fact that the constitutional provision didn't ask anybody to create some enabling legislation, because it's already inbuilt in the Constitution. That whereas you have the rights, these rights must be enjoyed without infringement on the rights of others. That there is no right which is absolute apart from the right to life. So there was no need of any other law. And the police themselves have a singular duty to ensure there is security for the people of Kenya and their property. So there was no need for any law. It was just that, okay, you are demonstrating, fine. The police will be there to ensure that you are doing it in the right way. You don't break somebody's shop. You don't steal from people. You don't pickpocket. You don't harm anybody.
You're not also
and the police are authorized by law to use even violence, to use force. Carrying a dangerous weapon is already itself an offense. So there was no need for any other legislation to enable Article 37. It is self-regulating within the confines of the Constitution. But more importantly, Bungei or anybody else, they do not have the power to stop or to grant permission. No, I don't think.
Are you therefore in agreement with the minority leader in the National Assembly, definitely Pio and I, saying that their role is just to notify the police, not seek any kind of permission
even by that unnecessary piece of legislation. I call it unnecessary because 37 is already self-regulating within the context of the Constitution. But let's grant it is there. Even that one does not provide for anybody giving the permission. No, you don't ask for permission. Because the history where we came from, that's why it is put like that. It was so difficult to hold a meeting. People used to be dispersed. People were jailed. People were injured because they were arrested and for holding meetings, illegal meetings. And we didn't want to go back there. That's why we say, let it be absolute. You can have your own meeting. And that's why even that unnecessary act of parliament they are relying on. Nowhere in that act is there anybody with the power to grant the permission. And the demonstrators, the picketers and the rest, merely notify the police. It is very clear there. And they say at least 3 days before the event. And I've already argued that's already a self-imposed problem. Because there are certain things that can't wait even for an hour.
The president said previously that he will, okay, going by the president's statement back then, why do you think that in as much as he's aware of what the Constitution says in relation to Article 37, with all this stuff to do with demonstrations, picketing and so on, why do you think that he still has got this idea, or rather appears to be thinking that he's in a position to stop these demonstrations, or rather grant them permission to do so?
No, as far as granting permission, that one we have finished.
That one is done.
Unless you declare a state of emergency. The president has powers. He can declare a state of emergency. So long as you go through the provisions of the 58 or 158, I can't remember. You can declare a state of emergency. That allows you to do certain things. But before you do that, you will not have the power to stop demonstrations or picketing or anything of that matter. But again, we may be getting the president wrong. When the president says, I will not allow, it does not mean I will not allow you to demonstrate. Because that power he doesn't have. I will not allow things to get out of control. And that is right. When it comes, that is right. Because he's the president. He will not allow, as the president, for things to get out of control. Yeah, that's okay. That one is okay. The president is perfectly in order. But if people read it to mean he can say demonstrate or don't, that's wrong. He doesn't have that power. But the bigger power of ensuring that things don't get out of control, he's the head of government and head of state. That is his responsibility. It's a question of how does he do it. The simple idea and the cheap way of thinking you can stop demonstrators, that one it can't work. No, that one cannot work. You think you can use force to stop people, it cannot work. And I have said it many times, it can't work.
Okay. No, of course, there
are better ways. I feel so painful discussing these things. It really pains me. Because, look here, Evans, there are better ways of doing things. We are not talking about Ugandans and Kenyans quarreling over some border between the Karamajong and the Pokot. It's about Kenyans and Kenyans. It pains me that we are discussing these things when Kenyans can just sit down and talk. It's so painful to me.
There's also been this talk, or rather this some sort of information that Raila actually alleged of some sort of attempted assassination on him. I wonder what your take would be on that.
I doubt those assassinations are ever discussed. We remember some Itumbi and his Lamada. So people, I found it very interesting. Itumbi was telling the country that there were plans to assassinate, I don't know who. But I can't remember who. But he makes it laughable by saying the room had about 30 people, something like that. A big, you mean 30 people can meet to plan an assassination?
How many does it take to plan an assassination?
My friend, that must be a very serious secret between 1 or 2 or 3 people at most. The moment you open up beyond that, you are not even sure. You think in a room of 10 people, you can be 100% sure there's no mole there. If Ruto calls a meeting of 15 people to plan to assassinate Raila, are you sure from the 15 you can miss 1 or 2 who will come and tell Raila? So assassinations are not things that are planned and discussed. That already makes it a stupid thing, because how can people meet to plan an assassination? These are always, whenever they are done by the top level thinking and the top level fellows, intelligence and what? It's not even within the intelligence, it's just 1 or 2 people. And maybe another politician or something. It cannot be something to be taken in a plenary for discussion. Let's go and assassinate Raila. I don't think that's how it works. But having said that, they say there are no rumors in Kenya. You've heard that, eh? Let's just hope nobody's thinking such a silly thing. I am aware, because I talk to many people in this country. I've had long discussions and arguments with people, including people close to me. Sometimes including another son of mine. There's this school of thought that you can arrest Raila or even do anything worse than that to him. Luos will make noise for a week or 2, throw stones, and things will go back to normal. It's a very worrying narrative, because what makes it worrying is that there is a narrative believed by many people. A worrying number of people believe that you can deal with Raila and do anything you want. And Luos will just make noise for a couple of days or weeks.
And life will continue.
And life will continue. That, I find that very disturbing. Extremely disturbing. Extremely disturbing. First, really, a human being must be allowed to enjoy their rights, whether they are 1 or 2 people. And my own understanding of life tells me that the people we hate for being a nuisance end up being the people who bring the change that people benefit from. So even on that alone, why can't you even thank Raila for having brought so much at a great cost to himself? So that hate against Raila is not justified. Secondly, Raila is a leader of millions of people. You don't want to hurt those millions of people. Third, Raila makes the opposition, the angry people, the crowds, have a leader. And therefore, when you have disturbances, riots, mass action, there's a central command. If Raila is not in the picture, then you will have to deal with riotous mobs without a central command. Then you can go to Liberia and find out what happened there. You can go to the Republic, Central African Republic. You can go to the shenanigans that took place in Sri Lanka and the mess in Egypt at some point. Then you realize Raila plays a critical role. I did a video and say Ruto should thank Raila. Because Raila can tell these people, next, maandamano tusimamishe leo, tutakutana next week. Monday. Si anasema hivyo? And people go home. Supposing there's nobody to tell them that, they will continue and it will be very dangerous. But very finally, to dissuade these people who think this is a simple issue, almost everywhere this sort of thing has happened, the country has had to go into a civil war. Almost everywhere. And I challenge them. It's easy to say things cheaply. That you will deal with Raila and people riot for a week or two. Fine. I agree you can think like that. But also go a step further. Go a step further. Look at places where that sort of thing has happened. And tell me one where it didn't lead to a civil war. Do we want a civil war in our country? Is it because we are unable to do very simple things like sitting down and talk that one must now think? You use the last option available at great risk. You want to take the risk. Because surely if you touch Raila, you are taking a risk. Is it really necessary for you to take the risk? You know, a risk is just a risk. You can't define a risk in any other way. A risk is a risk. It's a gamble. It will either go your way or the other way. So before you take a risk, you must know a risk is a risk. So if you are going for Raila, you know it's a risk. And you can't have your own definition of a risk. It remains a risk. And a risk means there is always the danger to you that things will go the wrong way. You could plan so well, but the execution could fail you.
Okay.
So that's why it is a risk. Then the question I must ask myself, and it's so painful, is which is easier to do? What is easier to do? To sit down and talk as Kenyans, or to begin imagine assassinating Raila or jailing him? Which is easier? Why are we leaving the easier option, going for a dangerous, an option that has all the dangers around it? Okay. I thought the easier option is for people to sit down and disagree. I have said this thing until now. Let this be the last time I'm saying it. If we don't have what it takes to be able to sit down as brothers and sisters, then we have no business even living as human beings. Let us destroy each other. Wacha kanuke. Wacha kafanya nini? Wacha kanuke. Because, I mean, if we don't have what it takes to see that we are all brothers and sisters in this country, and we should sit down and talk, maybe disagree during the talking, but at least sit down and talk to avert a crisis. If we are that stupid, if we are animals to that level, then let it go the way it can go. Let us be foolish and do what foolish people do. And looking back, sometimes you wonder, how foolish were we? I cannot believe that people can even imagine of assassinating Raila or jailing him when there are much, much easier options. Tell me, please. This talk stalled because of Kanini being included. You mean instead of removing Kanini from the team, you want to think of assassinating somebody? I know it's not there. I have told you assassination is not something people discuss in a plenary. But I'm saying to those who are thinking that way, I'm just asking them, you think Kanini being in our team is so important that he must be there, even at the cost of causing a civil war in the country? So that people must begin thinking of arresting Raila and assassinating him, so that Kanini may be in a team. That cannot happen in the animal in the human kingdom. That can only happen in the animal kingdom. Yeah. So if we have decided we are animals, and there must be very bad animals, not even good animals like cows, very useless animals like hyenas, vultures. Unless we have decided that's where we belong, I cannot possibly imagine that the easier option of sitting down is so difficult for us. We must go for the other easier option, whose consequences are too bad even to contemplate. I cannot imagine.
We're yet to see what will happen, but then we pray that peace remain and reign in this country. Till we have this conversation again, have yourself a lovely day. My name is Evans Okinyi.